Good morning. I was commenting to one or two others that I'm between you guys and lunch, so I'll keep it as streamlined as possible. As you would have seen via the guide, this morning's session is about a set of updates and plugins that HP have released in conjunction with Microsoft, obviously, around System Center Operations Manager. Who here is firstly using Insight Control, like the HP SIM and the agents and the RDP and that sort of stuff? Yeah. Anyone using the power management? Right. Who here is using Blades? Yeah, that's what we'd like to see. And who here is using System Center Operations Manager? Who's using SCOM or started to use it or looking at it? Yeah. General feedback? Pretty good? So what we'll do is we'll run through the material. I think the general format's been such that we've had Q&A at the end. Is that right? I haven't been to some of the other sessions. So if that's okay. And I was joking about having the Red Bull girls on the stand, HP stand, but apparently that's not going to happen, Paul tells me. So the fact that I know a good number of you in the congregation doesn't warrant any sort of abuse. So. But soon we'll have questions afterwards. So Stu Bernstein for Hewlett-Packard in pre-sales. And as noted, and as you're probably aware, we have a suite of products called Insight Control, which fundamentally in the Reliance space, so, and that covers rack mount, pedestal, so your tower servers, as well as blade system servers. Insight Control allows us to provide infrastructure, proactive and reactive reporting, control, lights out. Everyone loves Insight Lights Out. As well as the power management, the power capping, and then of course with integration into Insight Manager itself, it gives us that ability to, on predominantly like an SQL database, report and garner that information so that we can then use it in a heuristic sense, so we can plan and with other higher layers of software provide capacity advice and planning and so forth. But for those where we like to be able to provide a choice for customers in environments where necessarily they would potentially be using System Center Operations Manager as their predominant application infrastructure console, then certainly given the fact that HP very much is strategically aligned with key partners, and one of our main partners, of course, is Microsoft. So the integration with System Center is a natural alignment for us. So what we've tried to do is basically say, well, look, day-to-day management, deployment, you've got ProLiant infrastructure. You should be able to get the benefit of the Insight Control fundamentals, so what we call the foundation suite, which is your agents and drivers and so forth, all the alerting, and actually get that information produced through what is natively a System Center Operations Manager console. Did anyone go to the SCOM performance tuning session? Has anyone been to them? There have been a couple running now. Yeah. So today's session is more about awareness of the plugins we provide for SCOM. There is a wealth of work that you probably need to be aware of with regards to performance tuning, not only the database but also SCOM itself. And I guess as part of the information you can refer to those other sessions. But in essence, Insight Control for System Center, as noted on the slides, and some of these are a bit of an eye chart, I'm sorry, it is seamless integration. So you can use the System Center Operations Manager console to directly feed off agents and drivers. There's a set of functions that are also available to give you native blade enclosure, monitoring and management as well. But another key thing to note is that if you say you bought an enclosure of blades and you got 16 Insight Control licenses, that automatically gives you the license to use Insight Control System Center. Okay, so there's no additional licensing to purchase. It also gives you the support as well that you would naturally get with Insight Control. Okay. We're probably all aware of the System Center portfolio. As you can see, in 3 of the 4 main quadrants, we actually provide a solution space for direct integration for our infrastructure. All right. So we'll cover all of these off in relative detail, but at a high level. So System Center, Virtual Machine Management, which itself is a management pack plugin to the SCOM console, as well as obviously the end-to-end service day-to-day management that you'll get with SCOM, but also, as you can see, the performance reporting and analysis. Right? So again, what it's doing is, instead of having an Insight Manager, a traditional console that you may essentially have seen, if you have chosen System Center Operations Manager as your console of choice, then we're providing the same information, or pretty close to it anyway, through the SCOM interface, and also SCCM, as you'll note. Anyone here using DPM? Good? That's just a question as well, I understand. All right, so, but in itself, the System Center portfolio has matured, evolved. It's been very organic, and certainly is a quite a powerful suite in its own right. So, component-wise, what makes up our component plugin for Insight Control into a SCOM or SCCM console? As you can see from there, obviously there are 4 or 5 main sets of plugins, and this will become clearer as we progress through. So obviously, one main difference, because we also release Insight Control for vCenter. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say that here, but the Insight Control for System Center will run directly inside the consoles, whereas the other product, you still need an Insight Manager server. All right, so there's a key difference. Like I say, if you want to have a single pane of glass, you want to run SCOM 2K7, right? And that to be your predominant console, but feed directly into the infrastructure, then Insight Control System Center will provide that for you. Okay. So individually for the Blades and the ProLiants, there is a plugin. Okay. For Virtual Machine Manager, it's also a Pro Management Pack add-on, which incidentally, as you'll see, requires the Server Management Pack to be installed anyway, but it gives you that native hypervisor integration from the infrastructure. And especially if you've got shared infrastructure like Blades, as a lot of you probably know, having that infrastructure view of the hypervisor world is quite key, and it gives you that sort of bridge that transcends not necessarily the VMs or some of the other application tools are telling you, but also what the infrastructure is telling you. The real world, cooling power and link status, for argument's sake. And then, not to be left out, the System Center Configuration Manager, we have obviously, and have had for some time, the Smart Start Scripting Toolkit. Direct integration for bare metal partition, as well as BIOS configuration into the OS Deployment Toolkit. But also, we've added into that as well the hardware inventory toolkit as well. So it will give you the very similar information as what you'll see out of Insight Manager, right down to specific hardware details. Just some detail on packaging. Some of these slides are on here for your reference after the fact. But one point to note, I guess, is the fact that if you have current technical support around Insight Control, again, those arrangements and that licensing use can be leveraged within Insight Control for System Center. Right? So you don't need to get separate licensing or support. Okay? It's included as part of your technical services support with Insight Control that you may have existing with HP right now. Okay? So we've tried to make it a path of least resistance. To give you some idea, if you don't have Insight Control for System Center or Insight Control licenses, okay, you still can actually get some benefit of actually downloading the management and the Pro Packs for Insight Control. All right? So you can still actually get the benefit of these additional plugins like the server management, blade management, catalog update. Okay. Important to note, these don't obviously receive, if you don't have the licenses, you obviously don't have a support arrangement, so you wouldn't get the support for those products. Okay, so that's the key point on that set of slides. There have been a number of, obviously, updates within the Microsoft suite and product sets themselves. So, again, another eye chart for you to take away as much as anything, but also to have a look at now as far as what we do currently support and what we will continue to support. I've got some points that I'll make further in the session about what's coming up next year as far as some of the future enhancements are. So, installation and usage. So as far as Insight Control itself is concerned, when you download the Insight Control Suite, so 6.1 currently, and you download the 2 DVDs, on the left-hand side you'll see you have a choice of specific components you can install either individually. A lot of them are related with Insight Manager as plugins themselves. But then, of course, if you take that as a comparative note and look at what you would install with the System Center console, then you can see how it's broken down for the specific components based on which console you install them into. All right, so the server and the blade management packs, okay, you install into the Operations Manager, so the SCOM. The virtual machine management gets installed into the SCOM console, as opposed to some of the inventory and the deployment and the catalog services which get deployed into the System Center Configuration Manager console. All right, so they align pretty closely to the functions that you'd expect out of SCOM and SCCM. All right. Downloading the file, single zip, expands out to an ISO. Auto run will present you with this console, and then essentially this choice. When you install the packs into whichever specific console, you install it directly into the console. Okay. As part of the install, it will install some of the agent updates for you, as well as some of the management pack downloads that you'll need to distribute, whether you're using a root management server or distributed management services, or just a management server in isolation. All right. So all the rules that you would normally associate with essentially using SCOM in its own right still obviously apply. This is a set of management pack add-ons that allow you to delve and integrate more directly into the hardware, specifically itself. All right. Pretty straightforward. And again, it's split into those 2 different groups, as you know, which would be SCOM and which would be SCCM. Okay. Specifically now, looking at the SCOM side of things, so the management, the operations console, then SCOM in itself, obviously, as you're probably mostly aware, gives you that operations console, gives you the view of the world, gives you that node map. I guess the benefit of having that is it does give you direct point-and-click launch of the system management homepage and the ILO. The management pack itself for the ProLiant, okay, supports the native SNMP or WebM. Okay, so not using the WMI wrapper anymore as we would with Insight Manager. Okay, so we're doing direct SNMP or WebM out of the agents that you would traditionally probably deploy with a ProLiant rack mount. So if you had a DL380 and you do a smart start or some sort of OSD build and you put the agents in there, okay, then essentially they will be discovered. You don't have to configure them, which is another difference with Insight Manager, by the SCOM console with the management pack installed. Okay, and then per server or per context, if you like, you can configure that server itself. All right, so you are presented with options to select, depending on, I mean, a lot of people still use SNMP for legacy. Some people don't like it. It's clear text, right? They prefer WebM. It's far richer, and certainly as far as SCOM's concerned, around 2K7, WebM does give you a lot or far further reaching and richer set of information choices, especially when you start wanting to report and delve into some of the more, how can I put it, deeper sides of SCOM itself. The blade, now there's a difference here. So there's a blade management pack. So like the rack mounts, you install a management pack. Okay. If you want to, now this is just for the blades. This doesn't include the enclosure. If you do want to actually monitor the enclosure itself, as you'd expect you'd want to, at this point in time, at this very point in time, you need to install, as you can see there, on one of the blades in an enclosure, you need to install like a management service. So what it does is, so you guys are aware of the ILO channel management driver and so forth, so the ILO and the ILO will talk together, and via the service then funnels itself back to the SCOM management pack. So you can install the ProLiant management pack for the rack mounts and the standalone servers. You can also install the blade server management pack, but if you only install the blade management pack, you wouldn't necessarily find out about the enclosure, which is obviously not necessarily ideal, right? So you can actually then deploy a single executable on any one of the blades, obviously running Windows with a management pack, blade system management pack in there, to actually provide that further enclosure information. Okay, so just a key difference for you. All right. As you can see, the SNMP trap destination gets funneled up via that server back to the SCOM console. Okay. Having said that, it does give you a nice level of detail. It gives you a graphical representation. You can drill down to specific components, and you can get all the information you would normally assimilate with a server talking to infrastructure via the onboard administrator. All right. So it's real-world data. It's been collected and collated in the database. Okay. You can see the fans on there. You can see the power. You can see the interconnects. Okay. But like I say, you need that interface or that shim running on a blade server with a management pack running on it. Just a wee snippet for you. Next year, there will be updates to the enclosure monitoring such that the SCOM console itself will actually start talking SOAP XML to the onboard administrator and start presenting that at an enclosure level itself directly, rather than having to go via a server. Okay. Obviously, the choice around hypervisor using Hyper-V with the virtual machine management also requires a management pack to install. Now, one point they did mention this morning, and no doubt was it yesterday, I think it was, with the SCOM performance tuning, you do just have to be aware and plan how many management packs you're installing and where you're installing them. Okay, so we've spoken about 3 or 4 now. So you just have to be aware of, which management servers have which management packs based on where they are being located. Because these all do obviously accept and funnel alerts and trap destinations. So, and it's no different from the virtual machine management pack. However, this one also requires, as you'll note, the ProLiant Pro management pack as well. So the virtual machine management still leverages and utilises the ProLiant management pack, similar to what the enclosure did with the Blade management pack. The Hyper-V or hypervisor layer requires to talk to the SCOM console via the ProLiant Pro management pack. Okay. Again, you'll find next year there will be native hypervisor integration within its own management pack. Okay. Key takeaway on this set of slides is that with the natural integration into the consolidate of the infrastructure itself, allows the Pro Management Pack, if you want from the, as opposed to using the SCVMM specific console, you can actually trigger suggestions or actually migrations of VMs, specifically out of the Pro Pack. Again, it comes down to whether you'd want to or not, and the question itself, begs what sort of checkpoints do you need in place. But it does have that capability. To give you some sort of idea of what it does look like, okay, it can actually present these servers based on certain fault or error conditions. It can actually then say, do you want me to move it for you? Because it's already talking to the SCOM console, it can be part of an existing Hyper-V cluster and is aware of other resources that are available. Okay. So that's the operations manager, that's the SCOM side of things. So we've got the ProLiant management pack we can install for our rack mounts and our pedestals. There's the Blade management pack that we can install for our Blade service specifically. If you want to manage the enclosure, there's an additional executable that only needs to be installed on one of those servers, okay, running the management pack. To provide the coordination point from the onboard administrator out from the Blades to the outside world. With each of those management packs, you obviously need the ProLiant Insights Foundation Suite running, so the agents and the drivers. Makes sense, right? So, System Center Configuration Manager. People keep saying to me, oh, using SCCM or using RDP or other products? And I say, we'll use both. Microsoft is a partner. So, but certainly, one of the other benefits that we have seen with the fundamentals that are common to both these products is the Smart Start Scripting Toolkit. Now, it's been around since Adam was a boy, and it's even older than Paul. And but in essence, does give you that granular control at a hardware bare metal level. Okay, so it integrates natively into the OS deployment tool itself. Okay. At installation time, it can actually, depending on how far or what components you want to install, can actually natively install itself into the image build tool as well. Okay. As I mentioned, it's wizard driven. A lot of our systems now are becoming more and more wizard driven. They don't have to be, but generally they are. And certainly in line with current versions of WinPE as well, what it does is it does actually provide a set number of templates or predefined steps if you want to use those. I'll show you a quick slide. So you can set boot order, BIOS config, is it going to be boot from SAN? Do you want to change the boot order for the first boot only? Okay, domain, credentials, and so forth. Or if you already have something in place, you can actually modify that. Okay, very, very similar to obviously to what you would do currently with SCCM tasks and a stepwise server deployment. However, it's got the benefit of having the SmartStart Scripting hardware toolkit in there to do pre and post OS deployment. Okay. One other thing, or it's actually two other things that the System Center Configuration Manager actually allows us to do also is to, I get this question a lot, specifically around the blades, is, we're forever wanting to do firmware or driver updates, how can we centralize that and how can we use that? One thing that certainly SCCM does that HP Sim currently does not do is actually centrally manage and deploy firmware and drivers. Okay, so this can actually, via SCCM, also facilitate that function for you as well. So what it does is it uses the inbuilt services within SCCM to actually, at a set location, on a regular basis if you want to, pull down current catalogues. Okay, so for HP published, certified and interdependency tested catalogues, it will actually provide specific current and previous set versions of the main OSs. Okay. It allows you to manage and manipulate the actual updates themselves and how they're published, and just a bit of an outline as to how it works. So, and there's a link at the end of the slide. So when you get the slides, there's actually a link for the publisher site. But essentially, you're pulling down the actual updates itself, which are the excuse me, the HP firmware and driver updates for Windows. Okay, they are scanned by the SCCM server. They're incorporated into the catalog. Okay, and then via SCCM and the agents, they are deployed, if you want them to. Okay, so one of the other benefits of this is that with SCCM, it allows you to actually do a pre and post condition test. So in other words, based on what version of drivers are currently running or what OS, you can actually build up a set of conditions. Okay. The final piece for SCCM is around hardware inventory. So one of the functions that Insight Manager does very well, obviously, is discover and catalog hardware to the binary level, if you like. Now, to provide that capability in a balanced approach, if you like, for Insight Control for System Center, we also obviously provide that through the SCCM console. When you install the SCCM plugin pack, there is an inventory tool as well as a client update that is deployed to the SCCM server. As you can see, it does require SNMP at this point in time. Again, another update is that will change next year, where it will be more predominantly web or WMI centric. Okay, but at this point in time, it's SNMP. To give you an idea of how it actually functions, okay, there is a hardware inventory tool which is pushed out. Okay, this can run on a schedule basis. You can effectively manipulate this based on whatever cycle you need to facilitate. Advertisers, it runs. Okay, it updates an information file in effect. It's just a text file you can open up. Okay. The cycle itself on the configuration manager will run at periodic times, again based on how you want to facilitate that. It will then query the inventory agent. Very, very similar to how Insight Manager would query some of our agents now on board a ProLiant server, irrespective of being a tower, rack mount, or blade. Okay? And then populate the database. Okay? If you've used SCCM, going into the Resource Explorer will provide you with that style of information. Okay. So I'll add another slide. Which will allow you to actually drill down to specifics about every component within that discovered and an inventory reported server. Okay. There are 2 or 3 other specific integration packs that aren't shipped on the Insight Control for System Center CD. One of them is StorageWorks Management. So as you can see, via the HBA and the discovered or used storage systems, we can actually provide update and discovery and state monitoring from the server perspective for the attached storage systems. Okay. Specifically, and this is similar to what we see for the servers as well, just like we provide integration tools for ProLiant, we also do the same for workstations and laptops and so forth. So that's what the client catalog is for. One of the more recent additions is, and HB has quite a strong relationship with QLogic, is the addition of the QLogic toolset. So what it allows you to do is actually start drilling down the adapter itself. A lot of times the adapter, you have visibility of the volumes and the controllers and the fabric, but not necessarily the adapter itself. So this does actually allow you to add this specifically for QLogic, only at this point in time. Emulex is coming. I'm not sure about Brocade, although we don't see too many Brocade adapters around at the moment. But for QLogic, to actually add a management pack in, do have, especially doing boot from SAN, or you're looking to do a bit of troubleshooting, or you have critical machines where you need to test performance and have performance assurity, then certainly you can add specific adapter Pro packs into the console itself. Okay. The overlap between the System Center and Insight Control is pretty obvious. It's not a one-to-one relationship, so Insight Control itself will give you a lot more reportability and detail. That is changing, and certainly by 2011, early 2011, you'll have a greater set of feature overlap. Okay. We need to, in some ways, rely on updates from both Microsoft, as well as obviously what we're developing ourselves, as well as product changes and updates. Part of the reason with the current Insight Control System Center release refresh was to support the Generation 7 servers that are shipping now, right? So with the new Westmere Intel CPUs as well as the AMD CPUs. All right. Final lobotomy before lunch. Just gives you a bit of a, again, this is as much for reference for a takeaway. Gives you a bit of a feature comparison between the two. As mentioned at this point in time, certainly to deploy firmware and driver updates natively out of System Center is something that we can't do at this point in time out of Insight Manager, however that is coming. And as I mentioned, this table will fill up and be more synergistic with what Insight Control will provide you natively now. All right. Right. Apart from where can I get Red Bull from, any other questions? Oh, Steve. Don't stand up, sorry. I'm supposed to ask that question. Okay. Can I say yes or no? Or can I say it depends? The management pack for the networking is something that is on the roadmap for next year. Part of the dependency on that is the integration of 3 or 4 different companies which themselves make up HP Networking as a whole now. But yes, that discussion is occurring as we speak, so very much so. More so the fact that future products within the blade space are evolving themselves. So to pull that in and make that available natively through the SCOM console, yes, is something very much is on the roadmap. Sorry. So, another very good question. It's funny, always the people I know that ask questions. Again, as one of the additional updates, so next year you'll see 100 series service supported with SCOM and SCCM. You'll see cross-platform support next year, so yeah, your traditional mainstream Linux, as well as ESX. As you know, the mainstream versions of ESX will also be mostly embedded, which suits the cause, I guess, because most of it's CIM based, so Common Information Management Model. So it's all going to be SIM based, right? Anyway, so but yes, that is coming very much so next year, 2011, probably second quarter, along with the network capability. All right. I can't see who that is, but I'm sure I don't want to know. Yes.
What's the story with 4,000?
That's a storage product, isn't it? Okay. Yeah. So the P4000 sort of fits sort of in between there. I asked that question myself. There's been a lot of interest, obviously, in the P2 and P4000 series of products. I haven't had an answer back, but yes, it is a very, very good question around how it is facilitated. I can know that. I can see you afterwards and get some details and find it out for you, for sure. Good question. You're very quiet, Ian. It's not like you. Chris has been through some of this pain, so I'm surprised he hasn't asked a few things. Another one. Yeah, you're going to get one free one. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So again, it is something I have asked a question about, and we are waiting to hear about what is or what is not going to be updated, and what solution set it's going to be incorporated into. Given the fact that there are a number of management options for us for, how can I put it, scalable mid-range storage, if you like, then like the networking piece, I would imagine it will be something that we will release. There is a major release coming in the second quarter next year around an update to this. So I'd like to think that would be included. But yeah, I can find out for you. Yep. Everyone getting hungry? Yeah? Joel? No. Any other questions? Feedback? Something that looks interesting? Useful? It gives you the best of both worlds, I guess. It allows you to see the specific ProLiant infrastructure, including blades, if you want to consolidate on a single console. So we have a number of customers that are using, maybe Insight Manager. They may use SCOM as well. It gives you the ability to do that. And like I said, there will be a closer an affinity between the two sets. Now let's get that lobotomy screen. Where is it? That's it. And we'll give you that one-to-one alignment. But all the fundamentals are there, so the agents, the drivers, the smart start scripting toolkit. Okay, so, okay. Damien? No? Thanks for your time. I think that's it. Oh, there's the links. Client catalog update as well as storage are there if you want to go into the actual update service within SCCM. Okay. Thanks for your time.